Welcome back to Chainsaw Man Reviews, where every week we take a closer look at Studio MAPPA's Chainsaw Man, based off the Chainsaw Man Manga by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Last week's episode ended with Denji finding himself in a very drunk Himeno's room after going out for drinks with the rest of Special Division 4. He was too dizzy after losing too much of his insides due to constantly puking after Himeno puked inside of his mouth. He wakes up to find Himeno laying right next to him asking, "Wanna do it?" This episode picks up a little bit before that, starting when Himeno was carrying an unconscious Denji into her apartment. In this short scene, there is an insane amount of detail. A good example is probably how much guesswork had to go into making the chairs colliding and falling look natural. The extremely detailed unbuttoning of her shirt, and the somehow achievable point of view sequence of Himeno walking to her bed. MAPPA went all in for this scene, that I'm really glad that they decided to include, because just like a lot of the other basic getting ready for something scenes that they've had, was stuff that wasn't originally in the manga. After all, this probably would have been an entire chapter or more in the manga for how much time MAPPA gives it. These scenes help us spend time with these characters and really get to know them, because Chainsaw Man isn't that long of a manga. But we'll talk more about this at the end of the episode. And again, during this entire scene, they didn't have music at all, which is another creative choice that I'm very happy about. We get back to where we left off in the last episode with Himeno asking Denji, "Do you want to do it?" This obviously surprises him, and he's back to his state of shock when he usually finds himself in a situation like this. Come on, dude went from the bottom ring to top dog in a matter of days at this point. He doesn't really know what to say, because this would be a lot for anybody to process at this point. He doesn't answer, so Himeno just takes this as a yes before she starts to take off his shirt and then moving down to his belt. The entire time he's thinking whether or not this is actually a good idea. I mean, sure, he wanted this to happen, like really badly, but not with Himeno. He wanted his first kiss to be Makima, but Himeno already ruined that, so he at least wants this first time to be with Makima. After all, she's his big goal, the thing that's keeping him going. Though he decides to just face the music and let Himeno continue her work until she finds a lollipop in his pocket. We get a flashback to earlier in the night, a little after Denji had puked his guts out. Everybody else is lying on the floor from the drinks or just tired, except of course for Makima. She says that they should probably get some medicine for Denji. Outside the restaurant, Makima gives him some stuff that she had bought. Denji is back in a state of daze, like after the bathroom ordeal with Power, telling Makima how much more he expected his first kiss. He worries that every time he tries to kiss a girl, all he'll think about is barf. Makima takes out the lollipop she had in her mouth and puts it into Denji's. She says that life's too long to be dwelling on the taste of barf. Instead, you'll fill that void with other things, like the taste of a lollipop. We cut back to Denji now sleeping on the ground next to Himeno's bed, with her sound asleep. He didn't go through with the deed, feeling some sort of obligation to Makima. If it isn't clear already, Denji views his relationship with Makima as one of a mother and son, even if he doesn't realize it. This is taken a step further by Makima, since she was the first person to take him in and just take care of him. Give him proper food, clothes, and a home, something that any parental figure should give. This is also why he often opens up to Makima, much more than he has with any of the other characters. So naturally, Denji wants gratification from Makima by doing anything to make her proud, such as killing the gun devil. Anyways, morning rolls around and Himeno has finally sobered up, making the both of them breakfast. Himeno asks him if she forced herself on him last night, and Denji says that he wouldn't do it with her either way. Himeno lets out a big sigh of relief, since she would very much have gone to jail since Denji's 16. She asks Denji if he likes Makima, and he replies with a sudden yes. So Himeno brokers a deal between the both of them. She says that she'll set Denji up with Makima if he sets her up with Aki. He asks why she's so interested in him, and she replies, his face. Himeno and Aki's relationship is a very one-sided one. On one hand, Himeno's fallen head over heels for Aki, which is probably spurred from the fact that he's the only person who's stuck around in her life. She wants to keep it that way by being with him for forever, which is why she wants Denji to set her up with him. On the other hand, Aki has some weird thing for Makima that Himeno can't seem to push past. In the end, Denji accepts, and the two finally become friends with similar goals in their head. The two continue to enjoy eating their breakfast before we cut to an insanely well animated sequence of some dude just walking through a train. Little details that MAPPA has been excelling at are more than present during this scene, like the dude drying his hands with his handkerchief and then putting it back into his pocket. He sits next to Makima, who's on her way to a business meeting in Kyoto, most likely to get the reinforcements she talked about. As she reminisces about her night out at Special Division 4, somebody puts a gun to her head and pulls the trigger. This was very much a planned attack supposed to kill Makima, and it seemed that it succeeded, with Makima lying dead on the floor. The shooters start talking through some device, saying to start the operation. Then we get this montage that cuts between all Special Division 4 going about their work days separately. The entire time there's this really unsettling and strange music that really solidifies the eerie tone and builds a ton of suspense. The entire time there's no sound effects, as each of the members, except for everybody with Denji, is ambushed by normal looking people suddenly pulling out guns and shooting them dead. The only sound effects that plays is when the music stops, and you can't see what's happening, but you can hear the gunshots in the distance. MAPPA is taking creative liberties to a whole nother level. This whole entire scene could have been done normally and safe, but MAPPA took some creative risks, and it pays off. Anyways, Denji is still with Power, Aki, and Himeno eating at a restaurant. As they're enjoying their meal, a dude sitting alone at the table next to them starts talking to them, saying, "I'm amazed that you can eat at this ramen joint. Doesn't the taste bug you?" Nobody knows who this guy is, and they just pass him off as some grumpy dude before he starts talking about his grandpa. According to him, he was the nicest dude around, despite being a part of the Yakuza, and plus, he only killed like a few women and children. So yeah, definitely a stand-up citizen. The squad goes on eating except for Denji, who pays attention. The dude pulls out a picture of his grandpa, asking Denji if it jogs his memory. In the photo is the Yakuza contractor from the first episode. You know, the one that got turned into a zombie. The dude says, "I hear the gun devil's after your heart," before standing up and shooting Denji in the head. Power reacts just as quickly, sending the dude flying into the air with an uppercut. Then Aki swallows the dude with a fox devil, taking out majority of the building at the same time. As the dust clears, he looks around to see that Himeno took a stray bullet to the stomach. Before he has time to react, the fox devil starts to get cut open from the inside out. Before long, it's sliced into mincemeat. The culprit is the dude that it swallowed, but this time, he looks a lot different. Meet Katana Man, our second hybrid that we've met in the series so far, the first being Denji. But instead, he's a hybrid between the Katana Devil and the dude we met earlier. Aki pulls out his sword, the one that will cut his lifespan if he uses it. Instead though, it's actually not a sword, but a long metal spike. We don't have time to dwell on it as the Katana Man lands right in front of Aki. Aki rushes him shouting, "Now!" As he does, a large finger appears and flicks the end of the spike inside of Katana Man, before a voice starts counting down. Aki manages to land 2 more hits till the voice hits 0. Then, the Curse Devil appears behind Katana Man, grasping hold of him with its gigantic hands. It holds him up and the devil's heads begin feeding on him. Then, a sudden, almost comedic cut to Katana Man lying on the ground, now just a lifeless pile of flesh. Aki stands over him and asks Power how Himeno is holding up, and she replies, "Not very well." Aki is still trying to make heads or tails of the whole situation, since guns are next to impossible to obtain in Japan. He remembers what Katana Man had said about the Gun Devil, that it was after Denji. He realizes that they might be in cahoots with the Gun Devil itself. Before he can do anything else, a strange girl appears behind him. She compliments Aki on his work before kneeling over Katana Man's body before he miraculously stands up. She tells him not to underestimate Aki again. This time he kneels down in a strange stance and puts his katanas to one side of his body as Aki gets ready for another fight. Then he suddenly appears behind Aki in the same stance. Aki doesn't move, but he's gasping in pain. Then his stomach suddenly cuts open. Himeno watches in horror and tells Power to go help, but Power refuses, saying they would just be suicide. Himeno tries to command her Ghost Devil to do it, but it refuses out of fear. She looks around hopelessly for anything that can help them out before coughing up blood. She realizes that she doesn't have a lot of time left, so she tells the Ghost Devil, "I'll give you everything I've got, so give me everything you've got." By doing this, she basically makes the contract with the Ghost Devil, giving it her entire body, in order to summon the Ghost Devil in its entirety, towering over Katana Man. As they both start fighting in an amazingly animated sequence, all Himeno can think about is Aki. As a devil hunter, he's seen so many people die to the point where others would just be desensitized to it. But every time, he still cries for the ones that have lost their lives because he's still sane. Slowly, Himeno's limbs start to disappear and fulfilling her goal with the Ghost Devil. Luckily, it seems that her life won't be in vain because the Ghost Devil now has a hold of Katana Man. Aki notices what's happening with Himeno, looking at her in shock, before she utters her last words, "Don't die on me, Aki. So that when I die, you can cry for me." This episode has finally convinced me that the anime has surpassed the manga. Himeno's death had weight in the manga for sure, but it felt like that MAPPA has really taken their time not fleshing her out, but just giving us more time to spend with her and getting attached, making it so much harder when she's just taken away like that. Anyways, the creepy girl from before utters 4 words: snake, swallow it whole. All of a sudden, this extremely large gray tube snake-looking thing appears, biting off the head of the Ghost Devil. Again, more creative risks that MAPPA has taken that could have easily fallen flat, but instead, it heightens the experience so much. Aki looks back to see that all that is left of Himeno is her clothes and eye patch strewn on the ground. This episode was an amazing one, and I'm finally glad we're getting into this arc. Well, that's all for me. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.